Well, welcome to this second week of Humanity in the 21st Century. This short video clip is just to introduce the week's work, get you looking at the resources and get you thinking about the activities you need to perform this week and setting you up possibly for the tutorial discussions and the forum activities. Okay, for this quick video then, what we're going to do is just walk you through the week 2 topic, largely to get you ready for the tutes and the forums, and also to fill in a bit of information that you might have missed out on the first week. Okay, so here we go. Just to remind you briefly, the first week was all about really opening things up and thinking, what does it mean to be a human? We started working on that because that's obviously the first step. This week takes a slightly broader view and is starting to ask the question, what about humanity? How well are we off? How happy are we? What is our level of well-being? And to think about, really, we're living in a remarkable place called Australia, very, very, very affluent, but most of the world does not live like us. What we need to do in this topic is to really start to consider how most people on this globe are living, and ask the question, are we happy with that? Do we find that acceptable? Do we find it desirable? Or should we be thinking about doing something about it? Okay, now, when you come onto a new topic, first of all, you look at the notes and resources and activities. Then you might want to look at a video. Often I have a video here in about this place, the video I'm doing now, for instance. And then you go into your activities and start setting up your forums, which will be this little icon here. So let's look at the notes, resources and activities for this particular topic. Well, I think our major aim or major argument is that yes, we have phenomenal wealth, we do, and are we using that wealth appropriately? Are we happy with the way we're using it? Are we happy with the way the rest of the world may not have access to our wealth? How are they living? Maybe they're living happier than us. We've got to start asking that question. So specifically, this topic is centered around 3 fundamental questions. It's all very well to say we really want humans to be in a state of well-being, but what on earth do we mean by well-being? How do we measure it? What's it mean for you? What's it mean for me? And what's it mean for all of us? Let's just think about that topic to begin with. Well-being and measuring well-being is one of the hardest topics you'll ever have to look at. Most of us can say when we're not in a state of well-being. We've got hunger, we've got pain, we've got fear, we've got boredom, we've got loneliness, we've got lack of freedom, etc. We can usually find things which we say are not associated with well-being. Turning it around the other way and saying what makes us happy or what makes us feel a state of well-being is that much harder. Now, how do we do that? Well, you can listen to my lecture and say and listen to me what I tell you. Well, you could. I think the best way to start always in this subject is to think about yourself. Think about your own personal well-being and happiness and start to list factors that might help or might hinder. Once you've done that, you might then start thinking about your friends and consider what they probably would argue is factors conducing to well-being. I like to start at that point. Start with yourself, start with your friends. This is experiential. Then you can go to the, if you like, learned literature and study it up that much more thoroughly. But start with yourself first. You are the best textbook you're ever going to find in this subject. Okay, second question. How do our 7 billion fellow humans live right now in this world? You probably already know that we are possibly the most affluent country on this earth right now. We're either number 1 or number 2. We're really doing well. The fascinating thing is that our politicians keep telling us we're doing it tough. And we're not. Some of us are, that's true, but generally we're phenomenally wealthy. We're wealthier than any of the kings of the past in the sense that our lifestyles, the things we have around about us are great. Our longevity. Generally speaking, Australians are better off than almost any human groups in the past. However, we're told we're doing it tough. And of course our politicians say that, because then they can say, look, vote for me and we'll fix things. Okay, I want you to go beyond that and think a little bit more carefully about just how well off we are, and then more importantly, get a really good grip of the sorts of quality of life and possibly well-being of life that most of the rest of the planet is currently experiencing. And then the third rather fascinating question is, are humans rational? If we really are we're trying to promote well-being, not just for ourselves, but for the global situation, are we doing the things that are likely to lead to that? A big question, and you'll be looking at resource which will make you think differently about this, perhaps. Okay, so those initial notes are generally just to set the scene going. You then do a little bit of pondering about those things, then you go to the resources. And I've set up three. The first one is global issues, social, political, economic, and environmental. You've already looked at this, but I want you to particularly look at the set or the information on poverty and on consumption and consumerism. They're very interesting. Let me just get the causes of poverty up. This is Anup Shah who's written this. He's an amazing character. How he does it all, I don't know. He's talked about the causes of poverty. He's got a lot of information here. I'd skim through most of it. You'll pick up a lot of interesting ideas. Certainly you won't memorize it all, but you might just find little things that particularly affect the way you think about this story. The other element, and an element we're going to pick up later in the course, consumption, have a look at this little figure from Anup. The world's poorest 20% of the community only uses 1.5% of our resources. The world's richest use well over 3/4. Little facts and figures like this can make you think differently about the whole subject. Okay, so that resource will help you a fair bit about trying to get a grip on what's actually happening in the world at large. For the second resource, it's quite different. It doesn't really relate at all, but it's one well worth looking at. Let me just get it going. It's a really small pop thing. It's a bit dated. Have a little look at it. Maybe run it through again. I think you'll find it very interesting. It's 4 or 5 years old. Things have really changed since then, but things are changing even faster. And then the third resource is a worldometer. Again, a lovely little way of presenting facts, and let me just show you what it looks like. And basically, these are statistics that have been developed from all sorts of fairly reputable literature, and continually the numbers change. Current world population, we're now up 7.2 billion. Lots of little things here which are really quite interesting. But to get onto the idea of whether or not we're rationally using our resources carefully, have a look at this. Public health care this year, 620 billion. This is a worldwide system. 286 billion has already gone in military expenditure. Look at these sorts of figures and you suddenly start to get an idea that really, as a world, we're putting an enormous amount of money into areas which unfortunately should not be necessary, but for some reason we think they are. This little worldometer is fascinating. Have a look to see how much we're spending on illegal drugs. Already $65 billion this year alone. A fairly large chunk, comparable to, well, put it this way, if that went into feeding the world or educating the world would be changed very rapidly. Okay, just that was a brief explanation of the resources. They're an important part of the unit. You'll need to do a lot of work on that. Now let's just finish off with activities this week. Most of you will be catching up, I suspect. Please don't worry. It looks a bit overwhelming, but actually things get very much easier once you get hold of the ideas and the way we teach. You shouldn't have any problems. It's just the first week or two that seems a little bit unusual. Normally, one of your activities for the week is tutorial preparation by listening to this videos such as this and reading ahead. And as from next week, we'll be getting the notes up well before the week, so you have plenty of time to get ahead. The weekly forum, again, that's one of your activities, but you'll be starting that off at the tutorial when you're discussing it with your friends. This time I'll put up ePortfolio and Learning Journal entry. If we can possibly get you all to be able to do that by the end of this week, that would be fantastic. Whatever you do, really, really try hard. If you're having troubles, ask one of your colleagues in your forum group. They're bound to be able to help you, and if not, post to the question and answer, and I'm sure we can get you through. For some of you, it seems overwhelming. In practice, it's very easy and very exciting once you get into it. So I think that's all I need to say for this week's preparation for the tutorial. Um, we got away to an exciting week. Last week, unfortunately, there were a few glitches in rooms and things like that, but things should settle down very quickly, and I think you're really going to enjoy the rest of the course.